welcome to the Quantum Alignment Show. I'm your host this week. My name's Vicky Drake, and I'm so excited to share with you this week all about empowered parenting and human design. So first and foremost, who am I? I'm a soul alignment specialist for purpose-driven mothers, and ultimately I am a wife, mother, sister, friend, daughter, all the different titles that we get as women these days. And I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters who are 11 and 9, and they're a manifestor and a manifesting generator. And I have a little boy who is 2, and he is a manifesting generator. And I myself am a generator, a 6-2. I'm a certified empowered parent coach and a quantum human design specialist. And what I want to do today is kind of bring you a combination of these 2 modalities and bring them together to see how we can raise our children to be really empowered, to be true to who they are. For me, I work with mothers. I help them to achieve their full potential. And when I did the empowered parent coaching, I really wanted to bring that in so that the mothers could help their children also achieve their potential, because the future starts today. We need to be doing those things today. And when I discovered human design, I just thought, wow, this is it. This is what everybody needs. So very briefly, I'd just like to share my story. 2 things. I've always felt different. Growing up, I always felt like I was different, and I always wanted to make a difference as well. I really wanted to make a difference in the world. And I had 2 big life goals. I wanted to be a mum more than anything else in the world. There was nothing more important to me than being a mum. And I wanted to run my own business. I did work in the corporate world for 10 years, and I felt like a duck out of water. It really wasn't me. I really wanted to start my own business, and here I am, and I've been self-employed for the past 10 years, all in different roles, working with mothers, from being a birth mentor up into what I do now in the line of empowerment. But I didn't always feel empowered as a mother. And I think when you have such a goal, you really want to be a mum, you put so much expectation on it, and I certainly did. I had these huge expectations of the kind of parent that I would be, because I used to watch people growing up and go, well, this is good and this isn't so good, and I want to do this and I don't want to do that. And I really had this pedestal. And when my first daughter was born, it was amazing. I loved it. That's her in the picture, my little manifestor. And I felt so empowered. I felt like a great mom. I really felt like I was doing my best. I loved it. When my second daughter came along, it wasn't quite the same story. Long story short, she didn't sleep. And I developed chronic insomnia. And I had a good few years where it was just tough, really tough, with 2 young kids, on my own most days. My husband's amazing, but he works till 6 o'clock every night. So it was tough. And I really didn't feel empowered, and I didn't feel like I was good enough. And it was devastating. And then in my work, I'd left the corporate world by this point, and I was running my own business as a birth mentor and teaching baby massage, and I loved it, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to be me, but I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I really was. I had these big goals. I'm very future focused, and I had all these big goals, and I wanted to make a difference in the world and change the world and all of this. But then I was this, who do you think you are? As my mind would say, who do you think you are to do that? And I definitely didn't feel empowered at that time in my parenting or in myself and who I was and what I wanted to do. So then, becoming an empowered parent coach and going through the certification and going through the process myself as a client first, and then going through the certification, and then discovering human design, and they all kind of came at the same time, completely changed all of that. And in the work that I did with empowered parenting, I realized that I was more than good enough. And all that judgment and blame and shame and guilt that most mothers feel, and that I certainly did, I realized that I was being way harder on myself than I needed to be. And actually, it was a beautiful process to be able to look back and mentally hug myself, the younger me, and say, you did good enough. You're more than good enough. And one of my biggest issues was this belief, and I know many women struggle with this, the belief that I wasn't good enough. And through my work with NLP and coaching and other coaching certifications I've done, I knew all about limiting beliefs. And unfortunately, I was well aware of all these limiting beliefs that I had. And all the tools that I tried hadn't worked. I couldn't shift these limiting beliefs until I went through the parenting process, and they had this tool, and basically I shifted this belief that I wasn't good enough. And it was probably the most transformational moment of my life in this, when I went through this process and lifted this belief. And now I know that I am more than good enough, and I always have been, and it makes such a difference. You feel empowered. And also with all the tools I have, I know that I'm doing the best I can for my children. And that's all we can do, really, is the best we can. And when we know better, we can do better. And then I discovered human design. So I was already doing my own little studying of human design in the background whilst I was delivering my empowerment parent coaching. And I was working with a mother, and every time she spoke about her daughter, I was like, she's a projector, she's a projector. I know she's a projector. And in one of the calls, I just mentioned it. And I said, I'm studying human design, and I'm really interested. I really think she's a projector. Would you mind if I sent you something? So I did it outside of the circle we were already in. And sure enough, she was. And I was able to take that knowledge that I was given. So the empowered parenting works for all children, and we're going to go through that in a sec. But then what human design does, so you've got all children, it really empowers children and empowers parents. And then human design empowers the child stood right in front of you. So I was able to take this knowledge and make it even deeper, specifically to that child. So this parent in particular, she did my empowered parent coaching, then she did my parenting by design course, and she just doubled her results. And it was amazing. So that for me is my vision for the future. And it starts today. My vision is a world where, and I say children, but obviously they're then adults. The adults they have emotional intelligence, they're empathetic to each other, because if we look at the world right now, there's so much division. And if we could all just be empowered to be who we are and have that empathy for each other, it would be a completely different place. But we need to do that now. We need to start today, because throughout history, the dominant parenting paradigm has been one of control, not empowerment. And that's what we need to change. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So what I want to share with you, and I'm going to do my very best not to go off on tangents, because it is a gift of mine. I'm going to try and stick to this. That's why I've got slides, stick to the slides. And I could talk about this literally till the cows come home. So I'm doing my best I do talk fast anyway. I'm doing my best to get it all out. So we're going to talk about generational parenting patterns. We're going to talk about adopting a new form of communication. So this is what you want to bring into your home. This form of communication, which is based on feelings, needs, and beliefs. We're going to look at your child's core needs, all children's core needs. We're going to look at raising your child unique to their design, and how we can create a better future for our children and for all of humanity. Okie doke. So before we look at the empowered parent and stuff, we need to look at what has gone before. So this is the generational pattern that most of us grow up with. It's called the power over pattern. And the first principle of this is control. So this is where the parent is more interested in stopping or controlling the behavior than creating a connection with the child. So when a child misbehaves, let's say they're angry and they're kicking something, or they're hitting the brother or sister, the parent in this power pattern is more interested in stopping that behavior. And that's it, stop that behavior in whatever way that needs to be done, whether it's remove the child, send them to the room, put them on the naughty step. That's their main aim. The second one is expectant conditions for love. And here, the child must behave in a certain way to get the child's love. And this is not intentional on the parent's behalf. I presume all parents, most parents, love their children unconditionally. But sadly, often our behavior doesn't show that. And it's not about what we know we love them unconditionally, it's about how the child feels. So when we use the power over pattern, the child doesn't feel unconditional love. What they feel is, when I behave, they're nice. When I don't behave, they're not. And therefore, love can be taken away. And therefore, it's not conditional. The third principle is classic discipline without questions. So this is where we say, you do so because I said so, I'm the parent, and the parent always wins. Now, you might be looking at some of these thinking, oh God, yeah, I do that, I do that. And then when you get to the empowered parent stuff, you'll go, oh, I do that, I do that. And what I really feel is, at the moment, the parents today are, and not just now, but of course there was empowered parents in the past as well, but this power pattern was the most predominant pattern that was used. This is how most people have been raised. And then the parents today, the conscious parents of today, people watching this, they are living this power pattern, but they really want to be in this empowered parent pattern. And so we're kind of like a bridge. We're kind of the bridge getting from here to here. And we're not going to get it perfect. And I'll probably say that many times throughout this, because it can bring up lots of guilt when we watch something like this. And what I really want to get home is that there is so much guilt and shaming of parents out there already, so much judgment, and we don't need that. What we need to do is do our best. And when we know this stuff, we can start bringing it into practice in our homes. But it doesn't mean that we're just going to switch into the empowered pattern and this be all perfect, because when you dig deep into all of this stuff, the way we were brought up programs our mind, and 95% of our behavior comes from the unconscious mind and not from our conscious mind. So we might think, oh my God, why do I shout like that? I don't want to shout like that. I'm going to do better tomorrow. And then something happens, we get triggered and we start shouting again. We're like, what's the matter? And even when you know all the stuff around empowered parenting and you have the tools, you will still slip into that. So I just want to bring that up. This is like a process. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. I think there's so much parent shaming out there, and it needs to end. So the fourth one is a false sense of respect based in fear. And this is because you fear me, you respect me. This is kind of the obedient child, and some children, I just want to say this because there's always, an anomaly. There are some children who are naturally obedient because they're very conscientious. I was a naturally obedient child. I'm very conscientious. I didn't love my mum because I feared it at all. It wasn't that. So there is always different ones. There's always, people who stand out, but for the most part, respect is out of fear rather than out of love. And then the fifth one is indirect communication. So this is where a parent uses bribes, manipulations, punishments, threats, and dare I say even rewards. All of these tools, these ways of communicating, are using a power over pattern. So we try and get our child, we try and control the behavior. If you sit down in the restaurant and eat your dinner, I'll get you a bag of sweets when we leave, or you're not getting a dessert if you don't eat your dinner. We probably say it ourselves, and we've heard other people say it. I still say stupid stuff like this, and in my head I'm okay, rewind, go back, start again, hang on. Because it's programmed, it comes out. We hear our parents, and not just our parents. And just to say here, this isn't about point and blame and saying about our parents or their parents or teachers or anybody else. This is awareness. So we're not looking to blame, we're bringing awareness to this so that we can consciously start to change it. Okay, so that was the problem. And this is the solution. This is where we want to get to. So the 5 principles of the empowered pattern. So here we have, the first one is an empowered relationship. So this is where everyone has a voice. So obviously in the power pattern, it was children should be seen and not heard. That was the old saying. Now children are definitely have much more of a voice in families. Not all, but in lots of families. So the parent and the child, they work together to find a solution. And this is one, as a generator, I love the win-win. And this is one I use a lot in my house. We need to find the win-win. And then number 2 is unconditional love. So the child feels that they are loved no matter what. And that is every parent's aim. That's what we intend to do. That's what we know. We love them no matter what. But when we use the power over pattern, that message gets lost in translation. Number 3, active listening. So this is where a parent, so I need to get my glasses tightened, they keep slipping down my nose. A parent is curious and open, and they are seeking to understand. So let's use an example. You've got siblings and they're fighting. And believe me, my girls have been through those stages and it's not pleasant. So if we hear our children fighting from another room, in the power over pattern, we might go in and try to control the behaviour. And we might do that with threats and bribes, punishments, whatever it may be. But in the empowered parent pattern, we listen and we say, right, what's happening here? What do you need? And we go in curious to understand the situation. This takes discipline because, again, the subconscious mind, we've been programmed. However our parents reacted is how we will react. So we need to be gentle with ourselves as we learn these new skills and tools, because that's what they are. It doesn't come naturally, and to some parents it does, and to some parents it doesn't. And this is where I hate about judging other parents, because a parent on the inside could be a total empowered parent, but they react in the power pattern because that's how they were raised. That's what they know. That's what is programmed in them. And inside they have all this conflict because they want to be different. They want to do different, but they're stuck in these patterns. So number 4 is a natural sense of respect based in love. So because the child feels safe, seen and heard, they show respect. And then the 5th one is direct communication. So in the empowered pattern, parents communicate with their intentions. They let children know what they're intending to do. They express their feelings, needs, and they find solutions based on family values. And this is one thing I take my clients through, is sitting down, and we've done this in our home, and really understanding your child's values and your values, and then your family values. So if you walk into a room and your kids are pulling each other's hair out, you can say, hold on. Now I know you value fairness, and your sisters took this and you want this, and that's not fair. And I know you value kindness. So is it really kind to pull your sister's hair? And of course, I know sometimes this isn't going to go as plain sailing, but this is the aim. This is what we're working towards. So we can start to set boundaries and intervene with situations like this based on values, and looking at the child's feelings and needs, which is what we're going to look at next, because this is kind of the new communication that we want to bring into our home to really set the foundation. But what I wanted to say first, just quickly, is that knowing and accepting who you really are is the first step to transformation. So when I work with parents, although of course it's looking at the children and helping with them, it's got to start with the mother. I don't work with fathers personally, I work with mothers out of choice. But it has to start with you. It has to start inside, because you know, if you've had a day where you're feeling fantastic and everything's going right and the kids have a fight, you can deal with it. You're like, oh, Mary Poppins, and everything's fine because you're feeling good on the inside. But if you're having a really bad day, if you're going through a really crap time, or whatever's happening, hormones, and the kids have a fight, then you can erupt. And this is why we need to start inside to make the change on the outside. So when we feel empowered, we can raise empowered kids. We have a new way of communicating. We want to bring this new way of communicating into our house. And it's based on feelings, needs, and beliefs. So basically, children are experiencing high emotions, so high feelings, so joy, gratitude, happiness, they're all, they're feeling good. When their needs are getting met, or they have a life, like a positive belief. So I am loved, I'm accepted, people listen to me, these are our beliefs. On the opposite side of that, if they don't feel like a need's getting met, so if they're looking for, let's say, some attention, and they're not getting that attention, they might start to behave in a way to get that attention. And attention to children is attention. So if they learn that they're not going to get positive attention, they may misbehave to get attention, even though it's negative. So even though they're getting punished or shouted at, it's attention. So what we want to start to do is look at the feeling that the child's what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever, exhibiting. Look at the feeling. And of course, if they're feeling great, then there's no problem, is there? But we often look at lower emotions, let's call them, anger, sadness, and all emotion is just emotion. We put that judgment label on it. We say it's high or it's low, but it's just an emotion. But if a child is acting in a way that is perceived as negative, we often see it as a bad thing. And we want to we slip into the power pattern and try and stop it, or try and just cheer them up, try and fix it, rather than really letting them sit with that feeling. And then under that feeling are their needs. So every child is attempting to get their needs met, and they have 8 core needs, and I'm going to show you that on another slide. So what we can start to do for child, let's say the kids are fighting, or you've got a child who's angry, we can start to look at that behavior, and rather than try and control the behavior, we say, let's get curious. Why are they angry? What could it be? What need might not be getting met right now? And we'll look at the needs in a little while. So just a quick example off the top of my head, one that springs to mind. They often talk about the after-school meltdown, don't they? You know, the kids come home and you've not seen them all day, and you're like, oh, can't wait to see them. And they get in the car and they're screaming or they're whining and they're twisting. You're like, oh God, I wish I didn't pick them up. And often because they've had to suppress their needs all day, their need for attention, their need for connection, whatever it might be, they've had to sit still all day. And then they have all these needs, and you're the safe space. So all of a sudden, all this behavior comes out because they're trying to get the needs met. But for most of us, we're learning this for the first time. So we can't expect our children to know this. They're not just going to go, I need attention, please. I really feel like I need some attention, and then I won't misbehave, because we're just discovering this. So when we start to ask them, oh, it looks like you're feeling angry, what do you think you need? At first, they're not going to know what they need because they're not used to talking in this language, just as we aren't. But in time, as we adopt this new style and then they adopt this new style, they start to know. And when it might, at first they might be, I don't know what I need. And then we talk to them about different needs, and then they start to learn. So it's a process that we go through. So then we look at the beliefs as well. And underneath all feelings are beliefs. And our beliefs are either positive or negative. They're either life enhancing, they support us, or they're limiting. So for example, I'm not good enough is a limiting belief. And we can pick this up in childhood if, for example, we're raised in the power parent pattern and everything we do doesn't seem to be good enough. We get punished. So we take in a belief that we're not good enough. It can come from school. I know I always had a belief that I wasn't creative because my art teacher, I was actually very good at art, but my art teacher, in her attempt to push me further and do better, always said, I know you can do better. So I translated that as, I'm not good enough. I'm not creative. And it's only when I learned about limiting beliefs in my adulthood that I was able to look at that from an adult perspective and go, oh, hang on, okay. What I realized she was trying to do is encourage me to push myself further. But I interpreted that differently, and therefore I never believed I was creative. So we can have I'm not good enough as a limiting belief, but likewise, if we're raised in the empowered parent pattern, our feelings and needs are met, and we don't have all of this control and indirect communication, then we start to develop more life-affirming beliefs. I am enough. I am loved. I am whole and complete just the way I am. And this is why I want to merge empowered parenting and human design, because when we raise our child with this empowered parent and talk about our feelings and needs and beliefs, and then raise them true to their design, it's like, well, I've got a slide coming up, so I'm going to kind of jump forward here, but it's like empowerment on steroids, because we're giving them what they need. We're honoring their feelings, we're creating life-affirming beliefs, and we're then raising them true to who they are. So if you've got a manifestor, for example, and there's only 9% are manifestors, if you've got a little manifestor, they can be a little power rocket. And often their manifestors get conditioned the most because they're told that they're kind of the too much and the need to bring themselves down, and the creative expression gets gazumped. And then they start to develop negative beliefs about themselves. And this story springs to mind, so I'm going to share it. I took my manifestor to an art class when she was about 3, 4 at the very latest. And there was about 30 kids sat around this big table, and they were doing a specific thing. So it was like, whatever it was, I can't remember, but they were creating a snowman. So you had to stick to certain bits in certain places. Now, my little manifestor clearly had other ideas in her creative mind. And she just created this picture, and I was proud as punch. It looked fantastic. And then the teacher comes around and she goes, oh, okay. And she said something along the lines of, that's different, whatever she said. And I was like, what? Hold on a minute. And I didn't go back, needless to say, because to me, it's allowing her to, and I didn't know she was a manifestor then, but a child needs to follow their creative expression and do things their way, not fit into the box and do it everybody else's way. So this is why I love merging the two together. So children have 8 core needs. Now, we all have lots of different needs, obviously things like hunger and sleep, all those things, rest. But these are 8 core needs. And if we can meet these core needs, then we're doing a bloody good job. So the first one is unconditional love. And as we've seen, when we raise them in the power over pattern, our unconditional love that we know we have and that we feel isn't always felt by them. Excuse me. But when we raise them in the empowered pattern and we start bringing this conversation of feelings and needs into our home, they start to feel unconditional love, because they start to go, hold on a minute, I matter. My needs matter. My feelings matter. And how many adults need to know that and need to believe that? Because if we were dismissed, especially a lot of times it's whining and crying. And again, if we were dismissed and we won't always consciously remember this, when we were little for those things, then those things will trigger us in our child because we were wronged for them. So then we see them as wrong, and it triggers our nerves. So stepping into the empowered parent pattern isn't something that just happens overnight. It takes a real inner strength to look at ourselves and do the inner work that needs to be done. I can't see any comments, so I hope this is hitting home.
People are liking it, and you're almost right at the 30 minutes.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So the second core need is connection. We are built to connect. If the past 18 months hasn't taught the whole world that, if we didn't know that already, then the past 18 months has taught the whole world that we are born to connect with each other, and children need that too. They need attention, and they need positive attention, whereas with the power pattern, what happens is a child misbehaves and they get negative attention. But really, when a child misbehaves, what they're looking for is attention. So what we need to do is give them it in a positive way. And what happens when we start to do this, the behavior, this, if you've got a child who's having lots of meltdowns, and I've been here with all of this, if you have a child who's having lots of meltdowns, you start to give them the attention that they need, and those things just disappear. They disappeared in my experience. I can't say that they disappear for everybody, but in my experience, it did. They need empathy, and most people don't know how to. Some people are naturally empathetic, and as we know in human design, especially if you have the open solar plexus, but not everybody is able to have or give that empathy, because if it wasn't given to them, then they shut down. So I mentioned before about the belief, I don't matter, my feelings don't matter, my needs don't matter. If we've grown up with that belief, if we don't believe that our feelings and needs matter, then it's very hard for us to give empathy to other people, because if our feelings and needs don't matter, then why should theirs? And this isn't always a conscious thing. This is often an unconscious thing. They need affection. And I can't remember who said it and what the exact figure is, but it's something like, I think I worked it out in my head that it was like every 15 minutes. And obviously if they're at school, they're not going to be getting that. But if they need like affection, like physical touch, hugs, kisses, when you just play with their hair and little things like this, at least every 15 minutes. Now, thankfully, I am a very affectionate person. I'm a hugger. I'm a crier. Emotionally defined solar plexus. So I don't have any issue with affection. But again, due to our own upbringing, if we do have issues with intimacy, affection, and we weren't told that we were loved and things like that, then that can be hard for us to do for our child too. They need appreciation, don't we all? Don't we all just want to thanks and to be seen and heard, understood, and for people just to appreciate us? They need growth, so we need to be developing them in line with who they are. And I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. And it's very difficult if we take a one-size-fits-all to education, for example, in the school system. Are we growing our children in line with who they are as well in terms of their human design? Are they getting that their growth needs met? And independence, especially if you have a little manifestor, they need that independence and freedom. All these core needs all children have. And what I'm going to do when we get to human design is narrow it down per type and look at it in a bit more detail in the type. So if we're at the halfway mark, oh, that's good. I'm at the halfway with my slides. Cooking on gas. So misbehavior is an attempt to get a need met. So in the power pattern, a parent might think or say, he's just trying to get attention. He's just crying for attention. And they see the child as manipulative and they punish it. So there you have a child who's crying because they need attention. And the parent punishes them. Send them to the room, put them on the naughty step, whatever it is. In the empowered pattern, what we say is, he needs attention. We look at that behavior and we say he needs attention. And then we create a connection and we address the unmet need and therefore change the behavior. So we see this behavior, we see this, whatever it may be, they're kicking something. We, instead of punish them, we look and we get curious, we stay open-minded and we say, what do they need? And it could be that they've just spent all day in a classroom of 30 kids and they need some rest, especially if they have an undefined sacral. They might just need to go and have half an hour to themselves to lie down. They might just need some affection. They might just need a cuddle. And you can start to bring this in and ask them. Get curious when you see their anger. Don't meet it with yours. Get curious. And when I say don't meet it with yours, I hate all this parent shaming. Look at the note. Parents have needs too. And for most of us, we've got chronic unmet needs. And one of the things I do with my clients is get them to go through their needs and what needs need to be met and start getting them. As a 6'2", I have a need for alone time as the hermit. And when as I mentioned earlier, when my girls were young, I was home all day with them on my own, and I didn't go upstairs on a night when my husband got in because I felt guilty leaving him when he'd been at work all day. And I almost broke. And I didn't know anything about human design at the time. And the first thing I did that started to fix me again was I started to go upstairs. When he got home, I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to be on my own. And I started going upstairs on a night and having a couple of hours to myself. And it did everything I needed. It literally started to heal me. And then when I discovered human design, I was like, now I know why. So parents have needs too. And remember, I mentioned that we're not just going to go, oh, boom, okay, and I'm never going to shout at my kids again. I still shout at my kids. I'm just going to put it straight out there. I'll shout at my kids and then I go, oh, okay, I've slipped. What do I need? What do they need? How are we feeling? And we have the discussion. And in fact, I just had the discussion with them today. We were just talking about it. And I was saying how when we're raised here, and this is where we want to go, so we're raised in the power over, we want to be empowered. Parents now, so our job here is to do our best to get from here to here. We're not going to get it perfect. We just need to make progress and do our best. So my girls and my son, when they become parents, yeah, they'll still have a little bit of this power over pattern because, I ain't perfect. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, but I've brought all of this new empowered parenting. I feel empowered. I know now with the tools I have that I can put things right. Actually, it just popped in my head, so I'm going to share. On my website, I have I've put it as a mini training because it's so friggin' powerful. It's called Repairing the Rupture. And that's a process you can go through if you've inadvertently harmed your child. And by harmed, I mean like you screamed at them and they've got upset and you've lost your crap. Then that helps you to put it right. Okay, so I mentioned before, empowered parenting plus raising your child unique to their design is like empowerment on steroids. It's just a double whammy. And sorry, I keep lifting my glasses, they're sliding off my face. I need to get them tightened. I mentioned about my little manifester. She's 11, she'll be 12 next month. And last October, actually, yeah, today, I took her out of school and her sister. They're now home educated because she was bullied, severely bullied. And she has a defined will, she has a defined G centers, so she's a manifester. She's fantastic. I have chart envy. I want her chart. She's fantastic. She's just got so much energy. She's got so much power, so much leadership in her chart. And this bullying took her from here to here. And she literally started to say, like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And with a defined G center, one of the glorious parts of that is that you know who you are, and you are who you are. Wherever you go, they have this energy of who they are. And she was losing that. She was getting conditioned in her definition, and that was devastating. So this past year, I've done lots of different things with her, but one of the most empowering things is introducing her to human design. We'd already been doing it, but I brought it in on an even deeper level, and I've showed her a chart and I've talked about her chart, and she's like, whoop. And I empower her every day, and anything that comes up, I bring them back to the chart. And I say, oh, well, in your chart this, and in your chart that. And I just start to bring it into conversations. And you don't have to know your child's chart inside and out. But even if you just knew their type and the information on the centers, it is so empowering. Okay, so there are so many angles I could have took this on, but what I wanted to do was keep it in line with the core needs and the beliefs. So with our little initiators, our little manifestors, these are I've put here the two main core needs, if we could really focus on these, because independence is obviously one of the children's core needs. And as a manifestor, these are little palette, that little image just like sums up my daughter. It's like manifestors have so much creative energy and potential, and they are the initiators. They're here to get started. So the biggest thing that we can do for them to help them is encourage that creative flow and allow it, but teach them to inform. And this was almost a savior in my house, because I lost count of the amount of times I would say to my little manifestor initiator, oh my God, like, why have you done that? Can you not just tell me? Oh my God. And because she just, idea, boom. And it's ended in some interesting scenarios. And I always joke and I say I could write a book called What Katie Did, because it's just like epic. And now I've taught her all about informing, and true initiator style, she doesn't want to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm not asking permission, she says. And I said, no, just, she's old enough. And they say ask permission, for younger children, but she's old enough that I teach her to inform, not necessarily ask me permission, because she's going to do it anyway. I know she is. So I just let her know to inform me. And then if needs be, we can find a win-win. So if she wants to go off in the forest for the day, but I have plans, then we need to find a solution together. So teaching her to inform has been so powerful. And with the empowered parent, when I was doing all of this work, I was getting great results and it was fantastic. But then I still had all this anger from her, and I would get angry at her. And then when I brought the human design into it and we started to inform, I inform her more, she informs me. It's really started to settle things down. And I know now if we're in a confrontation, they're few and far between now, but if she's confronting me and she's like, and in my head I'm shouting, yeah, you need to respect me. I'm laughing because when she was about 4 or 5, I said, don't talk to me like that. I'm your mother. She went, don't talk to me like that. I'm your daughter. I was like, touche. And that sums her up. So if we're in a confrontation, I know that I'm not giving her enough freedom and need to cut the cord. And it is so hard, particularly with initiators. We want to control them. Parents want to control them because they are so powerful and they can just go. And we feel the need to rein them in. But actually, when we allow them that freedom and teach them to inform, they start to really flourish. Secondly, growth. Again, because they have this creative impulse, they need to be growing and they need to be learning and developing themselves. And we need to let them do that rather than try and hold them back. Because one of the types that gets conditioned the most is the manifestor. The ironic thing is we all grow up taught to be like a manifestor, to just do it. That was my life motto. I wrote blogs years ago about my motto being just do it and have no regrets. Then I discovered I was a generator, and I was like, no wonder things didn't work out. But we try and treat our manifestors, our initiators, as if they were anything other than that. So their power gets shut down. And then they start to believe there's something wrong with me. So we really want to give them that independence, give them that growth, really listen to their feelings and give them those core needs so that they can be who they came here to be, so they can fulfill their potential. Because without the manifestors initiating stuff and getting that information out there, then all the rest of us, we're waiting for this to respond to. And one thing, and this, why can't you just do as you're told? That was a classic for me with my little manifesto. Why can't you just do as you're told? Because I would tell her not to do something, and then she would do it, and I would tell her daily. And I must have told her 4,000 times, don't put my makeup on, leave my makeup alone. And again and again. And then I realized she's going to do that. So let's just buy her a whole load of makeup for herself. And then she can do what she wants with that. And she does. And she's fantastic at it. Okay, I'm conscious that there are a lot more slides. I could talk about this forever. My sacral is on fire. So then we have our alchemists. And I love the language that Karen uses with the quantum human design. Alchemist is just so much nicer than a generator. So with alchemists, they need appreciation. They need to be recognized because they're so capable. They are the little guy there building his tower. We are the builders. We're here to build. I'm a generator. We're here to build. We're here to create, to work. And we do. We just crack on. And often we don't get appreciated for that. It goes unrecognized. And I know personally when somebody recognizes that and that appreciation is there, it makes your day. In fact, I'm just looking at a lovely little symbol of appreciation that arrived today, 4 o'clock today. Amazon drops a parcel, and I'm thinking someone sent the kids a gift, and it's not. It was for me off my brother, and it's a beautiful, beautiful gift. And it was like, oh wow, and it just made me feel so appreciated and recognized. And he said, never forget, because I know how great you are. I was like, oh my god. With the alchemists as well, generators, we need that growth. We're more than capable. Alchemist children are capable, and we need to let them do that, what they need to do, and give them that potential to grow. But let them know about the learning curve. Oh my God, how I wish I knew growing up about the generator's learning curve and how we hit mastery and then we have a plateau. Because when you're on that plateau, the generator alchemist emotion is frustration. Hello, all the generators, we are well attuned to frustration. And I just wish I knew, especially for generators when they're surrounded by manifesting generators who can kind of jump these steps, and they're going, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I stuck here? So again, this is a belief we can develop. What's wrong with me? And that was a core belief I had. There's something wrong with me, because I would jump into these levels of mastery quickly. I can learn things so quick. And then I get stuck on a plateau and I'm like, but I didn't know this growing up. And if I had, it would have made all the difference. And what we can do is teaching them that at a young age. I mean, by the time they hit the 20s, 30s, 40s, they're going to know this whole process. They're going to be able to master, which is what they're here to do, and have that patience in between, and to know that when they're on the plateau, it just means rest, and then the next thing will come. And as an adult, having ran a business for the past 10 years, my God, how much frustration it would have saved me had I have known that when I'm on there, it's okay to rest, because I was acting like a manifestor. I should just do it, just do it, just do it, keep going, instead of following my strategy. And if you have an alchemist child, you might think, well, he just quits everything, because when they hit the plateau and they're frustrated, they want to just quit. So teach them again to respond. It needs to be in response. All alchemists need to respond to something. So respond to quitting. If they say, I don't want to do cricket anymore, I want to do jiu-jitsu. And you say, but I've just paid for all your stuff. You've just got all this new bat and blah, blah, blah. Tell them to wait to respond, and they'll get a sign from the universe that they're meant to quit, and then they can. And again, having followed this process myself over the past few years, it takes time to get to master it. If I'd have known that growing up and done that, it would have just made so much difference. And when we're doing that now, when our children are following their strategy now, when they hit adulthood and we raise them in the empowered pattern, they're not going to spend their adulthood learning this stuff. They're not going to spend their adulthood deconditioning from the past. Most adults now, or most conscious, awake ones, are spending their adulthood trying to undo what happened in childhood. So if we can give our kids the best chance, the best start without having to do that, and then they're using their strategy and they're where they need to be, it's literally going to change the world, because everybody's going to be where they're supposed to be. I'm just going to have a quick time check on my phone. 15 minutes. I need at least 3 hours. 1 hour is just not long enough. Okay, time benders. Love that name. And this in the picture is my little time bender. That's a couple of years ago. She's 9 now. And time benders, so they are the initiators and the alchemists combined. They have both. They need that independence too. These are very, very capable children. And because they have that motor to the throat, they can get on and do it, but they need to be in response. So again, we need to teach them to respond. And as with all generator types, we ask them, we want to start getting into the habit of asking your child yes, no questions. So many people say, what do you want for tea? I don't know. Would you like fish? Would you like chicken? We want to teach them that sacral sound. Now, there is one exception. I'm going to share it because my little time bender has it. If your child has the 3420 line on their chart, then they might not use the typical And what I love about it, when I first taught Bobby about her being a time bender, I said, so you need to respond with your sacral. So what that means is when I ask you a question, you either say or I don't want to say that, Mum. I want to say yes or no. And she's got the 3420. And 3420 people with that line don't necessarily use that. They might just say, yep, nope, whatever comes out is right for them. Again, the growth for these, we need to give them that growth and teach them about the learning curve, because with manifesting generators, the difference to the pure generator is they have this learning curve, but they jump. And they're supposed to do that. They can skip and master and jump steps. Sometimes they might need to go back. Sometimes they don't. And we really need to give these kids lots to do. Because my Bobby has the 3420, which is it's the channel of charisma, but it's also very busy. This kid does not sit still. Hence, can you not just sit still? A negative belief that parents often project onto these children because they need action. And now that I home educate and work from home, by far my biggest challenge is trying to make sure that Bobby has enough to do. So I always need to fill her bucket before I go and do something and make sure that she's entertained, she's got things to do, she's had her attention filled. Because if there's misbehavior, it's because I'm looking for a need to be met, often attention or connection. So I give her that first. Then I know I can go and do what I need to do, knowing that she has things to do. So often a limiting belief they develop is I have to stick to one thing because they want to do so many different things, and that's okay. They can do that. We need to give them lots of different things. They're more than capable of doing that. Then we have the orchestrator and the projectors, as they're known in traditional human design. Our little orchestrators is why I've chose the holding hands. These are here to guide others, to show us the way to manage others. And what we need to do, one of the main core needs for them is attention, because they need to be invited into things for them to follow their strategy. They need to wait to be invited. So if you have an orchestrator, you need to be inviting them into things. So especially, like, say, for example, you just come into this now and you have a teenager and you've just discovered that they're an orchestrator, projector in traditional human design, and they spend a lot of time up in the room. You need to invite them down. I'm cooking tea, do you want to come and help? We're going for a walk, do you want to come? And teach them to wait for that invitation. And a big one for these is empathy. And I mentioned at the beginning, most people aren't able to give empathy because they didn't receive it, or we don't fully understand what it is. And as a parent, this isn't a bad thing, but as a parent, we try to fix things. We want to just fix it. So if you have little orchestrator and they come home and they've had a really difficult day and they're sad, and the friends, they often feel unheard by people, because if they're sharing all this insight and wisdom and knowledge that they have, but it hasn't been invited first, people don't often listen, and then they feel unheard. So then they come home and they want to share it all with us, and we're like, oh, well, it's okay, like just do this or just do that, and we're trying to fix it. But what you really want to do is give them that empathy and just listen. And the client that I mentioned earlier, this was like a game changer for her when she did this with her little orchestrator. She said it just shifted everything. It just really made such a difference. Instead of trying to fix it, which is a lovely thing to do, we're not doing this out of any form of malice. She really embraced empathy and really started to listen. And of course, our little orchestrators don't want us to advise them. They know they want to speak out. They want to get it off the chest so they can hear themselves speaking it all out. And then if we want to, we can offer to fix it after we've given them empathy, but they really need to have that empathy first. And that can be a real game changer, because they can develop the belief that nobody listens to me, because if they're not being invited to share this wisdom that they have, then they say it, they share it, and it goes unheard. And then if they're trying to explain it to us and we're not listening because we're too busy trying to fix it, they're feeling unheard double. So just being there, just listening and biting your tongue, trying not to fix it or offering you advice, unless you say to them, once you've given that empathy, you could say, I have some ideas, would you like to hear them? Much like they can say to people, I have some ideas, would you like to hear it? So they can ask for the invite, they can tell people that they have some ideas, and would they like to hear it? And this bottom one, this is a belief some parents can have, but it can go the opposite. Because a orchestrator has an undefined sacral, they can take energy in and amplify it out. So some parents have orchestrators who are busy. They have all this energy because they're amplifying it, but that is not sustainable. So we want to teach them about resting and knowing when enough is enough, because otherwise by the time they hit 30-40, they're going to burn out. So teach them as a child to say, right, okay, I think you've done enough for today, why don't you go and read a book for half an hour, and let them have some time in their own aura to really start to settle down. The other way is they can be seen as lazy because they don't have defined they don't have a defined sacral, so they don't have access to energy. So if you have an orchestrator who does seem to be like they don't have much energy, they can't really be bothered, that's why. But you can invite them into situations and let them know this is why, and that's okay, so that they don't grow up believing that there's something wrong with them or that they're lazy. Because the trouble with these limiting beliefs that we develop in childhood, and most of them are formed in the first 7 years, 90%, 95% of our behavior is from those limiting beliefs, from that subconscious mind. So if we've developed something that says, I'm lazy, then it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy because we believe it. But the opposite of any of that is true as well. If we develop positive beliefs, then we can change, we can fulfill those, and all isn't doomed. We can undo anything that we've done. I'm spending a lot of time undoing limiting beliefs, and there's nothing like motherhood and being self-employed to bring all the crap to the surface. It's fantastic. You just have to look at when you trigger off your kids or when something isn't working in your business, and it'll go, yes, okay. So we go inside and we have a little look around and we clear it. And finally, we have our calibrators, or reflectors as they're known in traditional human design. And in terms of the main core needs for these, I would say connection, because they really need to be able to talk through what they're thinking and their thought processes in order to come to decisions. Calibrators need people. Anybody with the calibrators, the projectors, and the generators are people who need people, because they need to be in response, they need to be invited. So it's really important that they have connection, and they need to have consistency as well, because the unique thing about a calibrator, there are only 1% of the population of calibrators. They don't have any defined centers, so all of their chart is white except the out gate, which means that they're taking energy in and amplifying it out. So they can be very sensitive, very, very sensitive and empathic children. And They need this connection consistency because they will take in the energy of other people. And if they have a consistent family, people around, and consistent friendships, it gives them that consistency in their energy, which helps them to feel safe. They need attention, but also because they can feel lonely. They know they're different. They feel it. I'm yet to meet a calibrator child. I might know one that I just don't know of. But I'm really excited to meet a calibrator child. I know I have 3 calibrators in my Facebook group, and I'm like, because they're so rare, I just think it's fascinating. But they can develop a belief that they're too sensitive. So again, we need to be giving them that connection, giving that attention, and letting them know this beautiful gift that they have. And personally, if I had a calibrator child, I would be teaching them from an early age about the moon cycles. You can buy moon diaries. Excuse me, this is what happens when you have a banana before you go live. I do apologize. When you have a calibrated child, because they are so connected to the moon, their energy is going to shift with the cycle of the moon, because wherever the moon is, it's going to activate different parts of the chart. So I would definitely recommend getting some kind of moon chart, moon diary, so the phases of the moon, and they can start. And if they're doing this in childhood, and it depends how old they are. Your 5-year-old might not want to do that, but your 10-year-old certainly might. And then by the time they're an adult and they know, depending on the phase of the moon, where they're at and how they're going to feel, oh my God, how empowering is that? And often a limiting belief that a parent can have for a calibrated child is that they're clingy. And it's because they just want to be in that aura, because they're used to your energy and how it feels, and it gives them that safety. So these children, more than any of the other types, do need extra attention and extra connection. They do need to be in your aura more. They need to be in their own aura at times, obviously, to settle. And any center with any child with an undefined sacral is best to sleep alone. Not so much in the first 7 years, that's okay, but after that, if possible, and I know it's not always possible, if possible, it's really good to have them to have their own room so that they've got that time overnight to really allow all of their energy to settle. And I've just noticed the time. I could talk forever. Okay, I probably don't have time to go into the center of your world, but basically, obviously, we've got the 9 centers, and I'm going to share in a moment about a program I have called Parenting by Design. And in that, what I do is I go through the centers as well. We're going deeper into each of the types, but I go into the centers because this is where you can start to really look at your family dynamics and start to create more harmony in your home. Because if we're a family of 5. So when you've got 5 people in close quarters and all their auras are bumping off each other, all these different elements are going to have an impact. So for example, very quickly, I have only 1 child in the house with an undefined solar plexus. The rest of us are defined. So she's going to take in all of that emotional energy and woof, give it out. So she might appear, if we didn't know about this, as the emotional one, as the drama queen, but actually she's taking in our energy and amplifying it out. So whenever I notice my eldest daughter, she's displaying an emotion, I look elsewhere. I look to myself first and I go, am I feeling that? And often it is me. And then I address that and I let her know that actually that's me. I'm feeling that, and what you're doing is you're feeling that and amplifying it. And I thank her for showing me that. And then I do what I need to do to get whatever need it is met and to address that feeling. And I let her know this so that she doesn't grow up thinking she's emotional, because it's again where we can, in our openness, develop limiting beliefs about ourselves. And lots of people with the open solar plexus might think, oh, I'm so emotional. Actually, you're not. If you sat on a desert island, you'd be like, la. If I was on a desert island, I'd still be up and down, up and down, up and down. So we can really start to look at the centers and see in our home how we can start to bring greater harmony. And I teach my kids, I say, well, this is because she has an open sacral. She doesn't have the energy, so she just needs to rest today. Or, and start to really get them to understand other people and how their charts impacting them, so that they have that appreciation and respect for others. So creating a better future today, basically empowered parents raise empowered kids. We need to start with ourselves. For me, can you imagine a world where everyone is living true to their design? They've been raised empowered in the empowered parent pattern. And remember, we're trying to make progress. We are not getting this perfect. We're going to make mistakes. That's okay. We're doing our best every single day. But if we raise them in the empowered pattern as much as we possibly can and do our best and raise them true to their design, the world's just going to be a different place in 10, 20, 30 years. Because children who feel seen, heard, and understood grow up with emotional intelligence, and they are compassionate and empathetic adults. Now, don't we need a few more of them right now? Can you imagine the difference if there was a few more of them stood on the podiums with the current climate in government? It would absolutely change the world. If we all achieve our full potential, if we all raise to be empowered, it will just make such a difference. Now I could, I can't because Cindy won't let me, but I could sit here for another 7 hours and talk about this because I'm a generator. It lights up my sacral. My cheeks will be on fire because my sacral is burning. But anybody who wants to go deeper with this, I do have an online self-study course. You can find it on my website, vickydrake.com. For anybody watching this who is interested, I'm more than happy to offer a 40% discount. You have to set a thing on the website for when it ends. So it ends on the 8th of October at 11:30 p.m. UK time. So I'm just sharing that because I know there'll be a lot of people that are outside of the UK. And if you wait till the 8th and it's gone, it's because of the time difference. So you can check my website, vickydrake.com. I've put my email address, and you can also message me via my website if anybody has any questions. If you're on Facebook, I'm gonna come and look at comments because there's probably no time now to answer questions, but I promise I will come on at some point and answer your questions on there. And I can see there's 29 chats on Zoom, but I can't see what they are. So again, if you've asked a question, please go and pop it on the Facebook or message me, and I'll be more than happy to get back to you and answer it. I can't see what you've said, which means I can't see your lovely comments either. So I do apologise for that.
The only question I did see, I saw there were lots of people were saying there's amazing insights and that they loved it. The only question I did see that came through was, what was the program that you trained in before you started training in human design? You mentioned at the very beginning.
The empowered parent training. Is that what do you think they mean that one?
I think it's that one.
Yeah, I trained with a company called the Jai Institute, and they are phenomenal. If you drop me a message, I have a link. They are doing some stuff some stuff coming up. So you can drop me an email, vickydrake888@gmail.com, or just on my website, there's a message thing, you can send it on there. And I can send you a link if anyone's looking to do empowered parent coaching. I highly recommend it. And they've got something coming up. I don't know all the details because I've not fully read all the email, but I'm going to start putting some stuff out there as well, because they're saying, spread the message, because I think the more people doing this and empowering parents and empowering our kids, the better. So it was the Jai Institute that I did my certification with.
Thank you, Vicky.
My pleasure, absolutely.